to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
Dear God, it's me again. Can you bring me the toolbox? I need to fix some lives.
And Dale Hummel.
Stand up, speak out, make sure the silent majority is now heard.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, alongside co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ryan, it's been another good week. I was able to get out and about, and the airports are busy and the planes are full.
The airports are the most busy, and I just gotta say something, okay? So
what do you have to say?
And I am not trying to be rude, but if you have been in your house since Rona and not gone out on a plane or not gone out in the world because you were scared or whatever, there is nothing different that happens at an airport now from when Rona hit other than you wear a mask. So all you people that are like, oh, Rona's over and I'm vaccinated and I'm going out to see the world, don't be stupid, because y'all really annoying me at the airports every week.
The people at the airports is what you're saying that haven't been out.
Yes. Nothing is different besides wear a mask.
They're talking about getting out and enjoying life and being somewhere else that they haven't been able to go to.
No, but they're dumb. They act like you can wear your shoes through the x-ray machine now and you don't have to take out all your stuff. No, nothing is different. If you have been on a plane before, everything is the same except put on a damn mask. That is it.
I am not seeing that necessarily, but I am seeing a lot of foreign tourists.
There are lots of people out there.
You don't take your shoes off when you go through the airport?
Yes, I do.
You don't have the TSA pre?
No.
Well, maybe they all have that, or they assume they have it.
No, they do not, because they're in line in front of me.
And do they just...
You still can't carry water through security or any of these other things. The rules are all the same other than put a mask over your mug. That's it. All of it.
Why do you think these people thought it changed?
Because people in general are not very bright.
Maybe they just haven't flown before at all.
No, I don't think so. Not at this level. No. This percentile, no. No.
You're pretty sure of it?
Positive.
I did get a wake-up call when I was coming back from West Virginia this weekend, or yesterday actually, and very small airport, and the superintendent was taking myself and another judge to the airport that morning, and I thought, well, we're maybe running a little tight, but it's a small airport. It won't take long to get through, which it didn't. But we arrived about 2 minutes before the cutoff. Is that what they call it, Ryan?
Yes, there's a 45-minute cutoff. You have to be completely checked in 45 minutes before the plane is supposed to depart.
And this was a small enough airport. If we would have been another minute behind, we would have waited another 24 hours to get out of that town.
See, you're one of those people that I talk about.
Yes.
If you don't know that.
I didn't think it. I knew there was a cutoff. I guess when I go to O'Hare or any of the major airports, I'm very receptive to being there early.
Federally mandated.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Everything at an airport is federally regulated
when there
and
are
mandated.
Two planes going out of a little bitty airport, they shouldn't care about those things.
Okay.
If you're there 5 minutes before you can get on the plane, it's fine.
Next.
If they don't make you take off your shoes.
Next.
Gaza conflict. The Palestinians, Hamas, Biden, how does it all work?
Why are you asking me? I'm not watching the news till the elections start again.
I'm asking you because I would like to insert my opinion on this. And it's only my opinion, Ryan. It may not be accurate.
I just saw a very large protest in Chicago. I couldn't hear nothing because they kept telling us to back away from the windows. But I think it was about this. But no, I'm not watching the news till the elections start again. So go
I
right
believe
ahead.
that protest, I believe they had the Palestinian flags flying. I think that was the side they were on. I don't remember for sure, but the picture that you had put on Snap maybe. But we have a scenario here, and I'm not going to try to have you take sides on Hamas or Israel or which side. It doesn't matter. But I think there's a scenario that we can lay out that hopefully will make our listeners as cranky as what it makes me. This is about the conflict between basically Hamas and Israel. It's been going on for however long in the Gaza Strip. It does not matter what side you're on, but it's easy to determine who kind of got screwed the hardest, and it shines a bright light on some of the foreign policy that we have in place right now. To begin with, Biden chooses to release some aid that Trump had on hold that was to go to Hamas or the Palestinians. Hamas convinces Biden to release it so they get the money, our tax dollars, from our administration that's currently in the White House. They take that, they buy missiles from Iran. They launch those missiles deep into Israel. Israel responds by trying to take out most of the military operations, including leaders of Hamas, and they I'm sure caused quite a bit of destruction. Israel comes to the U.S. to buy more supplies. Biden sells it to them. How much was it, Ryan? I think you mentioned last week.
I think it was like $735 million.
It was a lot, which they probably launched into the Palestinian people or the Gaza Strip. So there's a lot of destruction on both sides, more so that Israel was pretty dominant with their airstrikes, and they blew up a lot of the Gaza Strip. There is destruction there. There are innocent people that are suffering. With that said, Biden is sending relief now and has committed to rebuild everything that Israel destroyed.
That our money that he gave to people that he shouldn't have gave to caused the destruction anyway. So basically what you're saying is we're paying out the ass twice.
We funded every avenue 3 times. We paid Hamas to begin with to go buy the missiles from Iran because we want Iran to have more cash. We paid, I guess the only thing we didn't pay for, we sold the military equipment to Israel, but now we are paying again to rebuild the Gaza Strip. It doesn't matter what side you're on. It's just sheer ignorance that we're funding this conflict, period.
This is why I sent this to you this weekend and you didn't pay attention, but this is why 82% of Republican primary voters want Trump to run again, and 83%, and that includes independents that voted Republican, this poll does, by the way, and 83% of Republicans or independents that voted Republican in the general election want Trump to run again because this man in office sucks.
He does, and many of the things that Trump took a lot of heat for before he was taken out of office are coming to light, and they can't deny some of these things. One of them is, and Ryan, I haven't jumped on this for a while, but why have we not pushed harder to find out the true origin of COVID-19? Why?
Because Biden is owned by China.
Yeah. There's no better explanation.
I don't even have to watch the news to tell you that.
No, how can we devastate economies, lose hundreds of thousands or millions of lives across the world, and nobody seems to want to get to the bottom of it right now? It's proven. Because
your aliens have not come in and gone commando on the Chinese Communist Party. So you need to talk to them.
I still have hope, and I'll get to that.
Oh, Lord.
It's proven. There's no question that China is at fault, whether they created this virus or manipulated the virus or Frankenstein the virus in the Wuhan lab, or if it was released or was an accidental escape, I should say. They covered it all up. They tried to push everything away from that lab that they could, but we're coming around now to the point that most of the scientists out there are leaning towards, yes, this was something they were working on. That's a problem because in many situations, we're funding a lot of this research around the world, and unfortunately, we're funding the Wuhan lab in China, and specifically, Dr. Fauci via the NIH sent dollars to the Wuhan lab to study coronavirus. There is no legitimate reason that we're funding something like that. So kind of like our Israel-Hamas conflict, we have Dr. Fauci here that we've been trying, or that some have been listening to for a year about this virus and how to defend ourselves and how we should act and how we should be shut down or we should be released to go outside, all of these things. It comes all the way back to funds that he released that went to China, Wuhan lab specifically, to do research on the coronavirus. We continue to be our own biggest enemy. And I can't quite understand how these things are possible because of what Dr. Fauci has done, his exchange with Ron Paul, his everything that I can point to. He should not be in office. And I'm going to go a step further, Ryan. I call him treasonous.
You just called the president of the United States a traitor?
No, not the president, Dr. Fauci.
Well, Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Look, he I don't even want to talk about him anymore because nobody pays attention to what he says because every week is something contradicting of the next week, of the week before. So, yeah, I found
and our tax dollars continue to fund whatever he so chooses. There were, it came out now, I think, in the Wall Street Journal, November of 2019, 3 Wuhan lab workers were hospitalized with COVID-like symptoms before anything ever came out that something in the food market, somebody ate a raw bat, I don't know. But this was all happening before that. There's no question that this virus was in the Wuhan lab. I do not have evidence that it was intentionally released, but if you think about all the benefits that China has received from this, it sure makes sense. And I'm confident the Chinese Communist Party has no morals, no ethics to stop them from releasing something like this if it's going to benefit them to get to their end goal. And their end goal is not good.
I have no doubt that China did something that they were not supposed to in regard to the coronavirus of it all. Do I think we will ever know for sure to what extent they were involved? Probably not, because they've done a real good job covering up. They don't allow investigators or people from other countries in there, etc. So you're probably not going to know, but I think everyone deep down knows that they had something to do with it. But when you have people like Biden, who's supposed to be the leader of the free world in office, who's not going to hold them accountable, doesn't even talk about China, then nothing's going to happen. So
no, and that's where we're at. I think it's you're right, Ryan. It's very clear by their actions to cover things up that they're guilty. Their hands are very, very dirty. I think we're pushing more that way, and I think you're going to hear a little more about it, but will we ever be able to just pin them down and get them to confess or admit to anything? Never. And I also believe that they will never be held accountable for it in any manner. And that is shocking to me. It's as shocking as anything that I've ever experienced when a country, either intentionally or unintentionally, if it was something that escaped out of the lab by accident, they still covered everything up. And by doing so, it prolonged and made everything worse when that virus spread across the world. It's a serious problem. What about the crime wave from coast to coast?
See, I don't need, again, Dale, I'm not going to watch the news till the midterm elections heat up.
Well, you went to Chicago and you're alive.
And there was no crime.
I go to the airport. It's not in downtown Chicago, but I do make trips to the airport. I don't go there, Ryan. I just don't, period. What did your mother think about you going to Chicago?
Till I got home, she thought I stayed in my hotel room the whole time, which was a lie. But anyway, look, you just got to be smart about things. Like I told you, and I told Cherie, you can research places you want to go and find out how many people have been shot, killed, mugged, raped, etc. Just be smart about where you want to go and you're going to be fine. I went out both nights and I walked the streets from like one bar to another one. I did all that, and I never once felt like my life was in danger, even when the little cop drove by screaming at people not to stand on the streets. I was fine.
You'll be fine until you're shot, and then it's a little bit too late.
I did not even see a gun. And let me tell you, I was around a lot of people. The one thing that I did get a little angry about in the Chicagoland, so there was this bar on Saturday night, and the reason I went to it is kind of like a social experiment, but they had
a social experiment.
Social experiment, yeah. They had an area for, like, this was a huge bar with multiple levels, a rooftop, all this other stuff, but they had an area for fully vaccinated people. And if you were fully vaccinated, then, and you could prove it, like you had to have your card or a picture of your card, it had to match your ID, all this other stuff. Then you didn't have to have a mask, you could dance, you could move all around, circa 2019, like when the world was not crazy, or wasn't as crazy, let me reframe that. But anyway, so I go there, and the line is crazy long to get in there, and I do not like standing in line for alcohol because there's multiple, like there was bars, all whatever that you could have gone to without a line. But I was like, no, I'm going to stand in this line, I'm going to do this. So get up there, and the guy says, have you been fully vaccinated? I said, yes. And he said, how long ago? I said, Thursday was my second shot. So, well, to be in the fully vaccinated bar, you have to have been vaccinated at least 14 days. I said, that was not on your social media or your website. And so he's like, well, you're right. And so then I show him my card and my ID, and he's like, well, you're not from Illinois. I was like, no, I'm from Texas. Is the vaccine different in Texas? Anyhow, long story short, because I was not from Illinois and I had not been fully vaccinated 14 days, I had to go into the unvaccinated part where you only got to sit at a table and you had to wear a mask and all this other stuff. So I had one drink and I left.
And how long did you wait in line for that social experiment?
25 minutes.
That's pretty good.
But I do think that will be more prevalent. I'm just saying.
That's interesting. That's the first time I've heard firsthand that you had to show a vaccine card or a picture of it for something.
No, and I mean, like, even if the little queens had pictures on their phone, they like had to blow the picture up, and guy looked at the picture on the phone and the ID and all this. I mean, they were very thorough. But I think in some states that's not going to matter. But like Chicago, where Beetlejuice, and places like Michigan, where Gretchen is in charge, that might be something where that happens. Also, I got a news notification right before we started recording that today your buddy Biden and his administration projects that 50% of the United States will have been fully vaccinated as of today.
And I think there's going to be parents take their children to get vaccinated. But outside of that, I don't know that a lot of the adults that have not yet been vaccinated are going to get vaccinated.
No, they're done. Hey, by the way, which kind did you get, Dale?
I got the Moderna.
Oh, damn it. I was hoping you got a different one. I got the same one. And also today, Moderna has now announced that their vaccine works in 12 to 17-year-olds. So they are going to try to cut through the red tape to let Moderna vaccinate 12 to 17-year-olds now.
I thought they released everybody 12 and up is eligible.
I'm just telling you what came across my news feed just a little bit ago.
Maybe there were certain vaccines that they weren't allowed to give that, but it's pretty open now that anybody 12 and older can go get the vaccination, and obviously that's a choice parents are going to have to make for their kids. And I have not seen any research yet that would indicate that a younger child needs to get vaccinated. I'm not convinced of that yet. I don't know that maybe at some point I'll change my mind. The unknown for me, and I'm being very sincere with this. I do believe, this is just my personal opinion, I do believe the virus was manipulated in the lab. I think we gave them a lot of the technology and the funding to do so, which is ridiculous. But if this virus was truly manipulated, which I believe in, I am fearful that either they have things within this virus that are going to be more long-acting than what we're aware of, whether they put that in intentionally or unintentionally because the research is pretty new manipulating such viruses. And basically what they've done is taking a virus from an animal that normally would not spread to a human, modified it so it can now spread to a human and go human-to-human transmission. We're in early enough stages that even if they didn't intentionally try to put something in there, we don't know what we're dealing with. We just don't. And I am concerned, I hope I'm wrong, that there could be some things pop up a year from now, 10 years from now, maybe somebody that didn't have real severe symptoms, but it scares me. And at the same time, I'm hesitant to give my children the vaccine because is there a chance anytime you give any vaccine with long-term side effects? There is. I chose to get the vaccination as an adult, a little higher risk. I think there's less risk in the vaccine than maybe that unknown from a manipulated virus. That's where I'm at. Rand Paul got in a lot of trouble for saying he was not going to get vaccinated, Ryan.
No, he's not getting vaccinated, not doing it. And now somebody sent anthrax-like substances to his house with a very disturbing note. Because, Rand Paul, people don't like him. This is his third brush with death here recently. He got shot or beat up, I can't remember, by his neighbor. Then, they were leaving some White House deal, and when all the protests, which they still may be going on in Washington, who knows? But anyway, him and his wife got chased, and now this. So yeah.
I'll tell you what, I've always liked him, and after his exchange with Dr. Fauci, he is my number one favorite politician at the moment. I appreciate
you change number one favorite politicians like most people change underwear.
I'm not arguing that. I'm just telling you, he stood up. He had the facts in front of him. He put on a very good case to Dr. Fauci, and Fauci, in my opinion, sat up there and lied. Period. Okay, we're running long. There's a couple real quick things I wanted to hit. Help wanted signs everywhere, Ryan. I see them in Illinois. I see them wherever I'm going to.
They are everywhere. Yeah, anybody that wants the job should be able to find one, because I'm telling you, I travel as much and more as anybody. I have never seen so many help wanted signs in my life.
And it's strangling the small business. Fortunately, Montana started pulling the bonus checks for the extra bonus money that people were getting on top of unemployment through the federal government, that stimulus stipend that I guess you could say that you were receiving, and you didn't have to go out and prove that you're searching for a job. You basically had to say that I'm scared of COVID, I'm staying home. You got your normal unemployment plus quite a bit more money. There is no incentive for people to go out and work. Fortunately, Montana's pulled that away, and because of that, I believe there's 24 states as of right now that have followed Montana's lead, and it appears as though when people are not paid to stay at home, guess what they're going to do, Ryan?
They're going to go get a job.
They're going to go get a job, and it's working, and it's wonderful. I'm excited about it. So people are choosing to not work when they're getting paid like that. And you know what? I'm not even upset necessarily with those people that are taking advantage of the system. I think that's maybe human nature to a certain extent. You can't expect them to go work if they're not going to make as much or not significantly more by working versus staying home. It is what it is. I don't know how any of the politicians could not understand that. But it sounds like we have now 25 states that have removed that. They're getting people back to work. They're not getting paid to sit on their ass.
That's positive.
It is positive. One last thing, and I know this is your favorite. You mentioned this, or we brought it up last episode. So Trump, we talked about how he was wanting to declassify some of the UFO information.
Oh, here we go with the aliens again. Let me tell y'all something, people. I do not sound like this because Dale sends me 900 million things a week about aliens and UFOs. But anyway,
I try to educate you on them.
Right.
So our Trump, another thing that he's correct on. So he put in that initial $3 trillion stimulus package. Somehow he incorporated into that package that at a certain date, which is coming up soon, I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, that the Pentagon has to release more information or declassify more information about the UFOs. I don't know why he would put that in there, but I promise you he had a reason for it. Maybe because that was the only way he thought it would get released. I really don't know. But it's interesting to me that this is how a lot of the information's now getting to the press, because Trump initiated putting this in that stimulus bill. I don't know why. I wish I could tell you that someday.
Is that all?
Are you ready to pack for a show, Ryan?
Oh, sure. Why not?
What goes in a showbox is today's topic. And I mean, we can break that down and go into a lot of different directions, but I think Ryan had suggested earlier, let's just go ahead and start with the items that would be pretty much a cross species. And we're going to obviously talk about cattle, pigs, goats, and sheep. We have had quite a few requests to talk a little more about horses and rabbits and chickens. I have nothing against showing those, and I respect those that do, but I also have I want to emphasize zero knowledge in that area.
Look, I think the horse show world is really cool, and I've been to a lot of horse shows, but I don't know anything about it other than there's a bunch of hot cowboys, and they have a lot of money, and they do things really fancy, so I like all things horse shows. I've had one experience each with rabbits and chickens, and they were both terrible, so I now only wear fur and feathers. I don't show or judge them, so a limited experience on all that, so I suggest somebody in those worlds start a podcast, because there are people out there that want more information, etc. We are just not going to put out information that we know nothing about, because that's not what we do here. But I put out a little post on social media about, what do y'all want to hear from us? And what goes in a showbox was one of the ones that got a whole lot of traffic and multiple people saying so and stuff like that. And since Dale is on this rainbow, sunshine, unicorns, and leprechauns with pots of gold theory of life, then we're going to do another topic that doesn't make anybody upset.
Well, you never know that. I mean, we could argue about what goes in a Showbox.
I don't think that's going to make anybody upset, Dale.
Probably not. Well, you do have the supply companies. What brand and things like that, possibly.
Okay, whatever. But I am going to assure people that I will not stand for this forever. We will go back talking about things that maybe you don't like to hear, but you need to hear at some point, because this whole little sunshine and rainbows things does not work for me. But
it's very temporary. But we do need a little positive once in a while. You lead us off with some general things.
General things that probably need to go in everybody's Showbox, or at least go with you to a show when you are headed that way, is I would think the first things would be you would need feed, an apparatus to feed your animal in. You would either need water, a filter, a water hose, and an apparatus to water your animal in. Now, those may not be in your Showbox, but they need to go with you to a show.
Yeah, just as important as what's in your Showbox. And I can take it even further that's the basics. And I can't imagine somebody's going to go to a show without having those things. Obviously, we forget things at times, but we intend to put a water bucket in. We intend to put feed in, all of those things. Now, sometimes, again, it doesn't always happen, and we tend to forget on occasion. But I'm gonna go a step further, and I don't care which species we're talking about, and you can throw me out there on the crazy end. I'm okay with that. I am going to bring the water from home, period. Not only am I going to bring the water from home, I'm going to bring the water bucket they're used to drinking out of. I'm going to bring the feeder they're used to eating out of. I'm going to make sure that feed is the same batch that they've been eating that week prior, not maybe a new one that just came in or something. All of those things that maybe it makes no difference at all. Maybe we'll be just fine without it, but I don't know that for sure. And I think that's taking one possible chance for error out of the equation.
You got that out of your system now? Okay.
I did. I was going to get that in there sometimes. We might as well just get it right up front.
Also, and this probably more in the Showbox, I think that you need to, we always took multiple water hoses, but I think you at least need two. One for there at your stall, even if you tote all your water from home, like Mr. Anal, Dale. And then another one for when you go to the wash rack to wash your animal. You're going to need some type of shampoo, soap, something to clean that animal with. And we're not even getting into fitting yet, because we'll get into that species, but an apparatus of some sort to help dry said animal that will be different for some species. And then some type of product, just a general hair care product, or several, but those are all things that need to go with you, input in your Showbox when you're going to a show.
And a lot of times, obviously, we go from show to show and we don't unpack and repack that Showbox, but just try to stock it with those things. And I, from our experience, the one thing that we seem to always be lacking when it's time to go to a show is that hose for the wash rack, Ryan.
Oh, not us. Not me and my family. I'm telling you, I don't know if I just was blessed with really good families, or I bet in Callie's trailer there's four water hoses. I'm serious.
And I think that's how it should be, because you know what? After 4 shows, we would need to go get that 5th one. We have not brought a hose back from a show that I can ever remember.
Now, I will say that we've left lots of hoses, especially the wash rack hose, but somehow we always had multiples when we got there. But yeah, leaving the wash rack hose is a common thing. Now, I will say that some of my families are probably not as friendly as others, so they're going to make sure they take their wash rack hose with them back to the stall because they brought theirs. Other people should have brought one too. But anyway, yeah, I get it.
Somebody out there's got a lot of wash rack hoses. There's somebody that's collecting them.
The wash rack hose fairy thief at the shows.
They're there. They are there. Well, I think there's another thing that I'm always, people will approach us and ask about, and I think we can put it in across species, something to attach the number to the body, whether it's a harness, a belt clip, a safety pin, depending on what species we're in. But that always seems to be a little bit of a panic that maybe not as much in the cattle because I think that harness is pretty much in everybody's show box, and I doubt that comes out very often. But in the smaller species, the sheep, the lamb, or the lambs, the goats, and the pigs, a lot of people are putting that number on their back. They're putting on a belt clip. Some are wearing harnesses, but we oftentimes safety pins are in short supply sometimes at the shows.
Yeah, and again, this might offend somebody, and that's okay because I haven't got much hate mail last week because we did one of these little rainbow butterfly topics. But anyway, so if you're showing a lamb, goat, or a pig, don't wear a harness. Just don't. It looks dumb. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Yeah, and I've been up in the air with it. And
it looks dumb. I'm just telling
you just think it fits the cattle ring, leave it alone.
Right. And this is not me saying that the cattle should only ones have harness. You look dumb in a lamb, pig, or goat reno with a harness on because 90% of them don't wear it. So you stick out, but you stick out in a bad way. It'd be like the same reason that no one safety pins their number to the back of their shirt in a cattle ring because 95% of them have a harness on, so you would stick out in a bad way doing it. And like, it's okay to be different and unique in a lot of areas. This is not one.
See, I don't have a problem with it personally. I agree with you. It's gonna look different. But if it's easy for that, I don't know who's ever trying to read that number that needs to read that number to see it. I'm probably okay. I don't mind. What if 10 years down the road everybody's wearing them in the ring? Then as long as 80% of them were using it, you'd be okay with it.
No, I'm just telling you right now, you look dumb doing it.
Okay, you're not changing that idea at all.
No, I'm not changing. No,
nope, we're there. Okay, I'm okay with it. Ryan is not. Health papers. I know in Texas, Ryan, you don't even really know what they are, do you? No.
No. I mean, unless you're going to a major, not really.
Outside of the state of Texas, they're fairly concerned about health papers at some shows, and I'm not saying that every jackpot show you go to is going to check them. But those that decide to, and if they have a veterinarian on staff or somebody from the state there to check them and you do not have them, you're probably not going to show. So do a little research, figure out where you're at. And obviously it's a little geographic. I know that if we go to a lamb or goat show without a scrapey tag in the ear and that scrapey number identified on the health paper, there's a lot of shows that we would not be allowed to show in. I'm not saying most of the jackpot shows, but a lot of them, especially if you're going out of state. Brian, do you know what a scrapey tag is in the state of Texas?
I mean, yeah, we know what they are. We just don't have the large majority of jackpots, or even like, I'm not talking about like the state fair of Texas, but like some of the smaller fairs that they're called, a fair, they don't require health papers.
No, yeah, I'm not even going down this path because we don't want to bring out some things that maybe are going to cause concerns, but every show is going to be a little bit different. I'm assuming that technically, especially if it's out of state, everybody technically needs to have the health papers with them. At some point, we probably are going to have to pay a little more attention to that, but I think it's good if it's fairly simple to get those health papers to have them on hand just to make sure there's no issues. There's one simple one, Ryan, that I can assure you every show I go to of any level, somebody will come up and ask me for what? Or I'm asking them. A pin, a writing pin to turn in your weights, to do those things. Seems simple.
See, yeah, that does seem simple. And you're right, because I've never thought about that, but like there never seems to be a writing utensil in the show box. Like we have to go into my purse or one of the show mom's purse to get one, but you're right. There should be a writing utensil in
I found something. I'm a pretty big fan of zip ties. Huge fan. Huge. They can fix their duct
so you're
tape,
kinky
zip
that
ties.
way.
I did not say that. At a show, zip ties and duct tape are going to come in handy on occasion.
Duct tape too.
But I want to take it a little bit further, and you can take it down the kinky road if you'd like, because this would even be, I guess, reusable. The reusable ties, the bendable, I don't know, foam coated ties that you can pick up at a Lowe's or Home Depot or one of those type stores that are really, really nice to have. We use them here in the barn when we're doing flush days to hold recip legs onto the cradle, to double wire or double latch your gates for the hogs or the sheep or the lambs at the shows. Same thing, is basically same purpose as zip tie, but we're reusable. We don't have to cut them off, things like that. But those I I can't say that I go to a show very often that I'm not using one of those two.
Yeah, I mean, zip ties and all those things, and even like the bungee cord things, and that come in different things. Those are need to be in everybody's Showbox, because you've always got to like attach something to something at a show, one thing to another thing, and so yeah, those are very important to be in everyone's Showbox as well.
And one thing we usually have plenty of, and maybe because I'm pretty anal about it, but never assume that there's going to be great power at these facilities or
that was my next
power.
one. Generator.
Yes. Generator, extension cords, both, all the above. Because sometimes they won't let you.
Lots of extension cords.
You may not be pinned near an outlet, and if you are pinned near that outlet and a couple people plug into that outlet that are running especially double blowers, Ryan, how's that going to work out?
I mean, it just depends on the barn. If they've got really good electricity, it'll probably be fine. But if not, then no. But
not many of them do, unfortunately. So even if we can't have a generator, you may be 100 feet from an outlet that's going to work for you. So let's bring plenty of cords. Just leave them in the trailer.
No, yeah, and by and large, the more you go to these shows, the more times then you run into a situation where you don't have something and you have to buy something or, do without something that you need, then you're going to put a middle note in your head that when you get home, well, I need this. And again, if you just put it in the trailer, put it in the Showbox, then you'll have it there for the next time. But power is something that is very, very important at a livestock show.
And I like that, Ryan. In an ideal world, if we're not worried about how much money we're spending, which we generally are, I would like to have everything that we're going to use at the show, with the exception of the water buckets, the feeders, the feed, those type of things. If we're talking about goats, I would like the goat stands. I would like all these extension cords. I'd like those hoses that we're going to leave there. I would like a separate set that stays in the trailer, goes off the trailer to the show, comes back on the trailer, never gets out of that trailer into the shop or into the barn. And I think we would be far more organized, and it would be far more simple going from show to show and loading and unloading, all of those things. But when we're grabbing our stands that are adhesive coated with lots of goat hair built up on them because we just pictured 100 sale goats and we have to load those up to go to a show because some stand broke a leg or whatever it is, it makes more work. It makes for more confusion. If you can have a separate set for that, that is absolutely ideal. Not always going to happen because it is expensive. The other thing that was just put together while I was gone, my wonderful wife put together a cart that we can haul water, specifically when we're going, or any of our show supplies from the trailer up into the tack area.
Well, isn't she fancy?
That was. I will usually go borrow one. For example, we get into Louisville at 3 or 4 in the morning.
That's because you only travel after midnight for some reason, yes, like a vampire.
There is something to that. And sometimes you'll borrow those without even asking, Ryan. But as long as you put it back before they wake up, it's okay.
Oh, there you go.
It's legal. That's allowed.
That's allowed.
There's one thing that again probably goes across species. Maybe doesn't work for cattle, but on the other species, I'm pretty big, if allowed, to bring bedding. I know you can buy bedding at the shows and so forth, but pigs, lambs, and goats, there's going to be, when we change that bedding, even if we go from one brand of shavings to another, depending on how long those shavings, how long ago they were harvested, whether they're kiln dried or not, all of these things, I have noticed that there definitely can be some irritation, almost some allergic reactions to bedding that they maybe are not used to. And I'm just not a fan of taking that chance. I know 99% of the time you're probably going to be fine, but I'm again trying to eliminate places that we could cause error, and that's one of them.
Yeah, and I think if you can take your own bedding to the shows, then it's probably a good idea to, do that because number one, it's probably going to be cheaper than what they sell at the shows because those facilities are there to make money, just like and so. Do
you recall what a bag of shavings would cost at the National Western?
No,
it was high, very high.
Yeah. No idea. I'm just gonna be real honest. I haven't been to a major show ever or a state fair ever that I didn't think that the bedding they sold there was higher than what it should be. But again, those facilities are there to make money. So,
And it's convenient to go buy it there and not have to haul it.
well, and there's some that make you. I mean, there's a lot of shows that make you buy your bedding there. I mean, not a lot, but some of the bigger shows. There's a facility in Texas that get used a ton. Several facilities that you have to buy, and it doesn't, regardless what the show is, they make you can't bring in outside bedding. You've got to buy it from them. But if you can, it's a pain to load and unload, but I think it's a good thing to do because A, number one, it's going to be cheaper, and B, number two, your animals will have been used to being bedded on that type of material before.
Absolutely. Are we close, Ryan? Do you think some of the general things? Do you want to go into the specific species?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and we're not going to remember everything, but because I mean, I don't write down notes on any of this, I just talk, but I think that covers pretty much the general gist of things that you need to take with you to a show, whether it be in a show box or put in your trailer.
I would agree completely, and we are going to forget things, I'm sure, and everybody's going to use different items, and especially if we go into a lot of the fitting supplies. Go ahead.
One thing we forgot: you need to have some type of just an all-purpose medical box, bag, whatever, in case an animal gets sick at a show. I suggest that for everybody.
Yes, and I meant to say that as well. And some people even want a first aid kit for people. I don't have one, but
I've never taken a first aid kit for people. Not saying that we shouldn't have, but we've just never have.
No, we do have a bottle of Tylenol in the show box, and I believe we probably have some Band-Aids.
We had alcohol.
So that's as close as we get to the first aid kit. That'll work. It probably serve the same purpose.
There you go.
But the antibiotics, and we didn't talk about that, and Ryan brought it up. Obviously, we have to be a little bit cautious, and most shows are going to be pretty good about allowing you to give antibiotics, but we do have some state fairs that are very, very particular about it. They will not allow you to give a shot of Naxel. For example, it has 0 withdrawal. They require their state fair vet to come and look at the animal, take the temperature, do the diagnosis, look and see if there's any symptoms, and then they will administer what they feel is appropriate. I'm not saying at 12:30 in the morning that you couldn't go give that shot and you're probably okay, but be a little bit cautious. With each show you go to is going to have different rules in place, and there's going to be some withdrawal times, and occasionally we'll have shows that are testing for different antibiotic levels, maybe not because they necessarily had it as something they wanted to look, but it was in that group of things that horse lab is testing for, or whatever lab they send it off to. So be a little bit conscious of that and put some thought into it. But I think it's good to have on hand. Anytime we're taking animals out, especially if it's the first couple times, we're going to stress those animals. We stress those animals. Their immune system drops. It's possible something's gonna break. It may be in check until we stress them, but when we put that stress on them, it's definitely there. What species would you like to start with, Ryan?
You can pick.
I would like
aliens.
No, you said I can't talk about that today.
Oh, where are you?
I brought it up a little bit. I had to bring Trump's opinion into it anyway. Uh-huh. I'm good with. I'm going to go into the goats first then.
Okay.
Easiest for me to pull off the top of my head because
There you go.
I think when you go through that, I do not usually personally pack the show box, but I am very anal about asking that question 2, 3, 4 times to my daughter, and my oldest daughter gets very irritated. She's usually the one packing things. And there was one, Ryan, that we probably could have went across species with, is some type of anti-diarrhea, kaopectin type product. Maybe not as much in the cattle, but definitely in our smaller animals, we can usually get that in check fairly easy if we have that with us. And again, we go back to talking about stress. And one of the things that's going to happen during stress or change of water or anything is sometimes a loose stool. And we really don't want that in the show ring, do we?
No.
Have you been in a pig show, Ryan, where a pig's coughed and that loose stool came out further than it should?
Every species.
And you hope you're not in that path.
So far, so good.
But it's going to happen, isn't it? It will happen at some point.
I'm just saying a loose stool has never hit me. I'm not that I haven't got shit on my pants or jeans or whatever to show. No, it's happened, but yeah.
No, I was judging a lamb show this weekend, and I when I go to handle some of those lambs had been out, it was the first time they're out, and I will actually put my leg up fairly close, almost between their hind legs.
I do that every time.
Every time. And I had a couple,
I do that every time.
lamb fecal pellets stuck to my pants that I was unaware of for probably at least one full class, maybe two.
No, I do that every time because like it helps. It just, that's how I do it.
And you're doing it intentionally so they're not able to back up.
Right.
Yep.
No.
Got it. Not because you want shit on your pants.
No, but if they jump or whatever, then they can't, do things. So yeah, every time I handle a goat or lamb, I always put one boot in between their back legs just for stabilization for me and the animal.
Got it. In our show box, if we have those loose stools, good idea to have that extra blanket for various reasons. And sometimes we're going to be traveling a distance, and if you don't have a temperature-controlled trailer, we're going to take blankets, put blankets on, take blankets off. I can remember we made a trip to Cow Palace many years ago. I believe Ryan was judging that year, and we just took a popper. So we didn't have any means of controlling the temperature. And at that time of year, it was still pretty darn cold at night going through Wyoming, Utah, some of the higher elevations. So we had 2 or 3 blankets on them, literally. And when you're in California or coming back here, we're getting up into much warmer temperatures where we're down to almost nothing on them whatsoever. So depending on where we're traveling to, be prepared for those things. We want to keep these animals as comfortable as we possibly can and keep them in check. It's sometimes difficult to go a long distance and keep everything right. And we have had a lot of people ask us about that, and maybe we'll do a whole episode on trying to get from one part of the country to the next and still look the part. But guess what? It's a challenge.
That's all you need in a goat show box?
Other ones. No, I've got some others. And I think these are some that are very simple. Whether you're showing with a chain, one of the different types of halters, obviously we need those in there. I'm not opposed, Ryan, if we forget that or if the animal's used to it. We have some of the crossover lamb kids that are showing them like a sheep without a halter or a chain. And if that goat responds and does well on it, I'm perfectly good with that. No issues there whatsoever. I don't believe we have it anymore. We have to be careful. There was 1, maybe 2 shows in the entire country that did not allow halters on goats, but I think we've overcome that. I'm not saying there isn't a county fair out there somewhere that won't allow you, but I believe as of this year, it's perfectly fine at every national show.
And you have ruined the goat industry.
I was told that, yes, that by putting halters on goats, we've ruined the goat industry.
Damn you, Dill Hummel.
I'll take full credit for that. Baby powder. And again, some of these things we're going to talk about, you've got to go back, and we talked about the show rules. Ryan would be okay with it because if it starts at what time, Ryan?
Noon,
we're good. Baby powder, most shows are good with it. Some shows are not. So read those, but not a bad thing to have, especially if we've got any pigmentation in the skin that's maybe not giving them as fresh of an appearance. That's going to help cover some of that up and put us in the right direction. Drench guns, again, in Texas, even there now, Ryan, some of the majors are making you do drenching in the wash rack area or designated areas where that was pretty open at one time. Same throughout the Midwest. Some shows are perfectly fine with it. Some are not. California State Fair, which I do not believe is taking place this year. They're going to be at the Cal Expo, which was very well run, by the way. And I'm excited that they're continuing that. Drench guns, depending on what state you're in, depending on the show itself, some allow them, some do not. My personal opinion, it's inhumane to not allow an animal to be hydrated.
No, I agree. But, so he doesn't do this every single time. From here on out, everything that we say needs to be in a show box. You need to check the rules at the show for everything because every show has different rules, etc. And so Dale doesn't say, check about this about everything. We're going to say lots of stuff needs to be in a show box. And whether there's a rule against that at that show, that doesn't mean it can't be in your show box most of the time. Just don't use it if there's a rule there.
Great plan. And if you do use it, and we did recommend putting it in the show box and the show official says something to you, I'd say, well, Ryan Rash said we could use that. I heard it on the podcast.
Okay, next.
Maybe it'll work. You just don't know. Preferred adhesive. And again, we're maybe a little too simple on this, but we'll take one adhesive, Ryan, and that's Sullivan's tail adhesive. Gonna certainly promote that from a standpoint that it's as good as what we have found to use, at least working with the goat leg hair. Cool lube. We didn't talk about that. We could have been in any type of lubrication for the clippers. For goats specifically, we're going to use a cover coat blade. Probably not a bad idea. We obviously, more times than not, are shearing at home before we go, but good to have the clippers and the blade in case we need to touch something up. And for our small clippers, some form of blocking blade and some other sizes if you're allowed to tighten the chest up or peel the top down, which, again, some shows do not allow. I think that for the most part, Ryan had talked about shampoo and conditioner. I lean, and I'm going to insert the word human shampoo or conditioner just because I feel it's less likely to dry the skin and hair out. But I think we're pretty good, Ryan, on most of that. Let's jump into cattle.
Since we're on goats and most people show lambs and goats, is there anything different that you think should be there for lambs?
Yeah, we can go through there. And the other thing we didn't talk about in our general, as I just saw in my goat little thing here, what about a pair of pliers, some tool, maybe a small toolbox of some sort, or a few little tools, pliers, I should say. That's about all I'm capable of using anyway. If we go into the lamb side of it, I'm going to say we're going to put a wool card in there, which sometimes we use on the goat legs as well. Different items between the two. Some type of whitener. We're going to use probably more on the lambs than what we would on the goats. A lot of the lamb people are putting an antifungal product on after the show, and I'm assuming goat people are as well. I'm not against doing that. We do not personally. I'm a much bigger fan of not washing at home the bodies very much and leaving a little bit of hair on them to let that hair and that natural oil kind of protect from some of those things. I can assure you our first year in goats, we washed and bleached and disinfected. And guess when we had the most ringworm and fungus?
That year?
That year, because we dried all that skin and hair out to the point where we were very, very susceptible. I don't know if there's, I thinking about some other things, it's pretty well crossover, I believe.
That's what I was saying. We could.
Yeah, there just isn't, maybe some detangler for that leg wool, black paint, if the shows allow it. I'm going to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, Ryan, and I'm curious where you're at. I think we've discussed it maybe once. The show I was at this weekend, one of my champions or reserved was pretty painted up. And to be very honest with you, and I'm not trying to be negative, if you're showing to me, I would prefer that if you are really, really good at it and using it very, very minimal to maybe push a chest floor up or shadow something, maybe, but to put it back there, to put on their legs or their points, I should say, in real shiny and real glossy, I do not like it. So I'm gonna take the paint out of the Showbox. How's that, Ryan? Not what to put in, but what to take out.
I think this is all relative. And again, like there was somebody that commented on Facebook about they're starting to paint pigs and they don't like that. I don't care whether if it's painting or fitting or twine or whatever those things are. If you are good and talented at it, I'm not going to say that paint or twine or any of that is going to fool me. I'm still going to see and all these other things and probably see through what you were trying to do there. But if you can make that illusion and you're really good at it, I'm going to appreciate the fact that somebody that's very, very talented painted or twined or fit that animal. Whether it does anything to hide an imperfection or, maximize something that's good about that animal or not. But if there is a great amount of skill level there, and I can tell that somebody who is super talented had something to do with that animal, that is a positive in every way. And I don't care who's judging, they would be lying to you if they didn't notice things like that and that made an impression on them. But the same can be said the other way, and it happens way more times the other way. And that somebody who isn't talented enough with twine or paint or glue or all these other things does something and it makes a negative impression. So that's how to sum that up real quick.
I like that very much. I agree 100% with that. I just about forgot leg wraps. Some people use them on goats, wrap the legs, and a lot of people use them on sheep. I still can't put a biological scientific explanation on why that would allow to grow more leg wool or leg hair and or maintain it. But it seems to be popular. It seems to most people are using it. I don't know, but I think bring some extra ones of those along. A choke tube. I never think about this. We don't drag many lambs, but when lambs go to feed really fast and really hard, sometimes we'll get some choking. Probably not a bad idea to have some type of choke tube available if that happens. And one thing we didn't say about the general, some people, and I like this, we go to Oklahoma City and we work with a couple different families down there, and one of our families tries to manage several families in one big group, and they all kind of stall together. And he'll put up on a very large whiteboard, I think there, maybe even on the stall walls, basically list all the classes, and it has everything organized and broken down. And it's nice to have that hanging up somewhere that we're not running, trying to find it on our phones or whatever. But it's good to have something like that across species. So especially if we're working with several families, or if a family has several animals showing that day, maybe multiple species. Even.
One thing that I said in the general, but I'm going to ask you specifically for lambs and goats, like, I know you don't wash the bodies, but you wash the legs, and sheep people wash whatever. Especially with like all this leg wool that you people are growing and mastering now, do y'all use blow dryers, or do y'all use a different, like cattle blow dryers, or do y'all just dry it with a towel? What do y'all do? Like, what is your recommendation?
I think on the goat side, it's 99% going to be a cattle blower, preferably a double blower, and just get it done quicker. On the lamb side, I think you'll get a lot of them blowing the legs out, depending on how much leg wool they have, and depending on where they're at, if they're actually going to get it wet, or they think they're in good shape right where they are. But there'll be some that I know their bodies were towel drying the lambs, probably more than blow drying.
Right.
The
Well,
lambs.
I knew that, but I meant I figured lambs and goats are pretty much towel drying the bodies. But
yeah, I'm going to say on the goats, since we're only doing the legs, definitely cattle dryers or blow dryers. On the sheep, pretty much the same, but there's probably some people that, depending on that leg hair, leg wool, shag, whatever it is, it comes in a lot of different textures. So I think there's probably not one set direction that's going to work for all of them, but I'm going to say mostly they're blown out. And every time you blow that out, you're just about going to have to reclip it. But, remember Ryan, we talked about the big leg, the unclipped, untendered legs.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why, because every time we blow it out, it just changes.
There you go. So
okay, I think we're good there. Now we can move on to cattle, and we'll save pigs for last.
Okay,
because we know the pig show boxes are the largest.
You mean the supplement trays?
The supplement box, the secondary supplement show box. Okay.
Cattle wise, all the general things fit. In Texas, we have very few fit shows left. We just don't, and so. Again, if you're going to a fit show, then I strongly suggest a trim shoot, unless your animal has been to 9 million shows and you can fit it there standing in the stall. They do make those little bar deals now where you can attach to the cages and stuff like that. But I think a trim shoot is just as good, as probably the most effective way. We talked about general stuff in terms of, he's brought up shampoo, conditioner, whatever. You're going to need a blow dryer. And that's just all there is to it. If you're showing a haired animal, a haired calf, then you're going to need a blow dryer. And I'm not going to get in there and say which blow dryer to use or anything like that, but you're going to definitely need one. If you're taking multiple animals, you're going to need multiple blow dryers. We talked about like fitting supplies. In Texas, we don't have many fit shows. Everywhere else, it's pretty much a lot of fit shows. And so glue, paint, and, there's paints that have powder, there's powders, all those things. And again, I'm not going to go into great detail, but the basics that you need to fit a steer heifer are going to be clippers, glue, and paint. And depending on what color your animal is and what your preferences are, I'll let you sort all that out, because I'm not going to sell one over another on this podcast here. But lots of good products out there to use. In terms of stalling, which we didn't bring this up in the general, but in the summer shows, I think every species is going to require a cooling agent of some sort, a fan. So cattle definitely are going to need fans, and they've got fan cages of every kind and side panels and everything that you could ever want or imagine for a stall area. And a lot of people customize their own, do all that stuff, and it's really cool and neat. But you need something to separate your group of animals from the animals being stalled next to you. In terms of, you're going to need a show stick, you're going to need a show halter, you're going to need a harness or a belt clip. We've all heard my rants on the show halters before. I'm not going to go down that road again, but match the color of your halter to your animal unless it's white, and I do not think white halters look good. And this is going to be just like, don't wear a harness and a big sheep or goat ring. Don't put a white halter on your animal. I think it looks stupid. And
Ryan, I appreciate you bringing out, and we totally about missed it, that the whole cooling system, depending on where you're at. And
I told you we were going to forget things, but I mean, we're
to it. We just about. I mean, there's some shows. If we go to Louisville, it's pretty well air conditioned, and we don't have to worry about a whole lot of that. But
I don't care if it's 2 degrees outside. Cattle people want fans.
And I guess, just trying to generalize, we do need to pay attention to that, because a lot of our Midwest fairs, a lot of the Southern fairs, I mean, it gets really hot, and the first thing we can do to dehydrate an animal, or if you want them to not look good, is let them overheat for a couple of days and then drag them into the show ring. Anything we can do, and in some state fairs, and I'm gonna bring up Illinois as one of them. We're very restricted on what we're allowed to use to keep those cattle cool in terms of butt fan, and I'm sure it goes back to a power situation, maybe a safety situation, but you need to know going to that show what you can and cannot do, and I would encourage you to go to the maximum level you possibly can to keep those animals cool. I don't think we worry much about the other direction if it's pretty cold out. Obviously, if they're on the trailer traveling or something, but most of our show facilities at that time of year are inside, and we don't get as worried about it going the other way. Put a couple blankets on your lambs or your goats, and we'll be okay.
People won't believe this when I say this, but the only haired steer show in Texas will not allow you to have fans. Fort Worth.
I'm sure there's a reason for it, but it's hard for me to accept whatever that is.
I can't accept it, and I love Fort Worth, and I love that show, but I cannot accept that. No, I can't. But
and you don't assume it to be a power thing.
I don't care what it is. Let them have generators, something. We worked
there
all year long to grow this hair for this one damn show. No, and there's lots of times in February in Fort Worth it is not freezing cold, people. I'm telling you, more times than not here lately. I don't believe in this global warming nonsense until the week of the Fort Worth Steer Show, and then I'm like, damn it.
I'm with you on that one. Anything they can do, and again, I know sometimes there's power issues and there's safety regulations from the fire marshal. There's a lot of things that Ryan and I do not have the details on that may cause some of these things, but for the most part, please, show managers, push it as far as you can, especially in the cattle side of things, and all of them, to allow the fans, allow whatever mister system, all of those things, just to keep these animals cool. We put too much time, the kids put too much time, the exhibitors, the families, however you want to state it, especially when we're coming out of some of these cooler rooms and trying to go into the real world. It's difficult is maybe the best way to put it. So let's allow as much of that as we can at the shows.
And going back to what goes in the cattle show box, in terms of working the hair, besides a blow dryer, you're going to need a variety of different combs. Again, there's more combs out there now than ever before. I'm not going to get into all that, but you need a comb and a brush of some sort. And, depending on your animal or your preferences, get with it. Experiment with them all, whatever. But you're going to need a comb and a brush as well. We talked about fitting supplies. We talked about clippers, all those things. So, a lot of the general stuff, don't forget that, but just things that are specific to cattle in terms of paint, glue, some oil agent for your hair, and then, show harness, show halter, show stick, a trim chute, things to house your animals in terms of a cage and stuff like that. Those are the basic things that again, we're not going to go into great detail on everything because if you opened up my Showbox or one of my, it would take me 3 hours to list everything that's in there, and we're already going very long on this podcast compared to what we normally do, and we haven't got to pigs or Dill's favorite segment yet. But so those are some general things that
I think we're good there. There's one thing I want to bring up while we're on the cattle one, and in most shows, Ryan, and maybe I haven't paid enough attention. They're still tying out. Some shows will not allow people to tie out at night. I don't understand. Maybe they just don't have the space. It is, but neckties when we're tying out at night. And you know what I would personally like to do at night instead of tying them out?
Well, you didn't bring up muzzles in the sheep and goats.
I didn't. Totally forgot it because you get in trouble at some shows for it, but I absolutely would put that on the list. I would love to bring just some cattle panels and set up a pin outside because I promise you those cattle are going to feel a lot better. Their joints are going to be better if they can be up and walking around just a little bit rather than tied 24/7.
If they allow it, we do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? I don't see a lot of it, but I assume space restrictions and a lot of places don't allow it.
That was the coolest thing about Houston Steer Show this year because of Rona, and there were no spectators and no booze and no anything like that. And they broke it up into like 3 different sections. Like people did make inside, like where your stalling area is, they brought panels and like just turned their little animal steer loose all day long. It was the coolest thing ever. We'll never probably get to do it again, but I thought it was great.
That is an ideal situation, isn't it?
I thought it was great.
Absolutely ideal. Those cattle, I mean, to be tied up that long on concrete, even though we've got bedding, it's hard on them. Really, really hard on them. But it's good if we can get them loose. Obviously, we're going to walk and exercise and those.
It's
things.
not the same.
Okay, pigs. We're going to go fairly quick through the pigs. We've hit a lot of the general things, but obviously on the pig side, we're probably gonna change things up just a little bit in terms of. And Ryan mentioned a lot of people are painting the pigs again. I'm right with Ryan. If you're really good at it and it looks professional, it looks the part, I'm good with it. I'm gonna say 80% of the time, not so much.
Yeah, and again.
So be smart about it.
And this is like clipping them or growing lots of hair on the pigs and stuff like that. I don't care what you do, as long as it makes that animal look better and you don't look like a jackass or whatever, then do what works for you. And again, anytime I see something that I can tell there is a great deal of skill involved in when that animal comes in the ring, that's going to be a positive. And again, when it looks like it's been thrown together with Elmer's glue and crayon scissors, it's going to be a negative connotation. So, just general common sense area.
Absolutely. And there's something that I'm going to put in the pig one that we could have went to the sheep and the goats as well. Something to clip those feeders to the gates. And there's various ways we can do that. But occasionally when you run into the vertical bars, it becomes a little more challenging to get those feeders attached. So wire, clips, whatever that may be, make sure we have the options available to get that feeder clip there for sheep, goats, and the hog side of things. On the supplement side, Ryan, I mean, I'm going to go back and remind people, please, you won't listen, I know, please don't go over 20% of your ration with supplements.
But then,
I know that everybody is
the
with
show
success.
supplies couldn't sell the supplement carts anymore.
No, you're right.
That would be awful.
I can't even go down the supplement side. Obviously, we have multiple kinds of whips. Ryan, you talked about whips one time. There was one you were not a fan of, I thought.
Oh, no. Somebody asked me this question today. Like, I joke with the kids that bring in 2 whips and stuff like that and stuff, have 2 whips on their hog, whatever. Like, I joke with them. Like, I'll call them 2 whips on the mic or something. But, like, it doesn't offend me if you show with 2 whips. I think in showmanship it's probably distracting. But if you need 2 whips to do what drive that hog the best in the actual show, no, it's not going to be a detriment against you. Again, in showmanship, probably I would find a different hog to show in showmanship, one that didn't require 2 whips. In terms of all the whips out there, I don't care if it's a pipe or a whip or anything like that. It really doesn't bother me. Again, whatever's the most effective and what will leave the least amount of marks on your animal. And so if you've got a small child that's a little, aggressive and hasn't mastered the art of guiding the pig with the whip, instead we kind of like to whack it, maybe not a pipe is for that kid. But got to have one of those things. We're going to have something like, and then again, on the pigs, you're going to need a brush for sure.
Yeah, but I think some of the different ones, obviously in the pig, and we aren't going to see it as much in the other species, but some type of spray bottle, mister bottle to keep those cool going to the ring. You've got to have some type of spray bottle that you can be 10 foot away when that hog is pinned, that you can spray that pig so the judge can watch you.
So your leader can spray it in the middle of the ring, and I can see who is spraying that pig. And I mean, I would suggest at least a 10-foot spray, 12 to 15, if possible.
Yeah, that's an absolute. If I'm going to go back, if I'm going to circle back here, I'm going to say the very first thing we need is that accurate long shooting Mr. Spray bottle to identify
who the leader, who the swami of your hog is in the middle of the ring. That is the most important by far. How could we forgot that? That is the most important.
I about did. Clippers, we talked about it in the other species. Maybe you want to throw some guards in for those of you that are using guards to clip the pigs, just in case we need to touch something up, if allowed. Some type of whitener. I'm not saying we don't use whitener in the others, but probably not a bad idea on pigs. And I have no idea if they're using it now, but if I go back in time, one that I had a lot of success with was a lot of the hand cleaner, like a Gojo or something like that we would cake the entire pig head to toe. We could not miss a spot, because if you missed a spot, it was very evident. But if we would put that on them at night, by the next morning, we'd wash that off. Amazing. Obviously, try this at home several times. Make sure there's no reaction or anything like that. But if you want to get that skin and hair right, that used to be very successful. I'm sure there's many other products, much more expensive, much more complicated than that at this point. But that was effective at one point.
You're going to need some type of oil conditioner for again, Dale's all worried about if you can use it. We made a general disclaimer. You're going to have to figure out where you can use these things or not. But because if you can use more than water, using a light oil or one of those many products out there is only going to help the skin and hair look better in the show ring. So those are things that you might need to have in your regular show box. And again, we know that you also have to have a supplement show box in the pig world.
And with that supplement show box, there's one thing, if I hear people at shows are frustrated about something, is they can't get their pigs to eat. Well, when we've given them this many supplements and we've fed them straight cake mix for 2 months, well, sometimes they maybe are going to get a little spoiled and we have to put more and more in to get them to keep going, and it becomes a problem. With that said, people are talking about appetite stimulants. I don't know what that is, other than something that tastes good, that's palatable, that they want to eat. Also with that, guess what I have found the most success with? And again, I am not the pig expert by any means, but
no, we have Fugate on
a little bit of.
He was.
We did. And Fugate would be all over the supplements, and we have discussions about that. If there's one thing, if I have somebody come to me, a family that maybe I've helped or just ask for advice, and that they say, well, I see their big old supplement cart. They've got everything you can imagine putting in front of those pigs, and they just don't want to eat it. My recommendation, my fallback on that at the shows, I hope you have a bucket or a bag of sow feed. 12%, just general old commercial, pretty much 90% corn sow feed, period. And more times than not, after they've been on the supplements and all this other stuff for so long, you put some just basic generic feed in front of them, they eat it. So let's put that in our not in our show box. Put it in your supplement box. You have room. I know you have room to do so. One other thing, some people will bring some type of hoof or pad protector or super glue if you tear a pad. When the pad tears, we can put everything in the world on it, and if we're not allowed to use anything like Banamine or anything else at the show, you're pretty much doomed. Is where it's at. We can put a lot of different things, and we can try to patch those up, but guess what? If we were to walk those pigs down that gravel lane every day, those pads would be so tough.
Go again.
They would not have a problem. Sounds crazy, I know, but I honestly, in a sincere sense, I believe we're far better off toughening the pads up than pampering, because those that are pampered, and I've done it for many years trying to get them through those shows. It is not good. Okay, I think are we? I know we forgot a lot of things, and I'm sure we'll hear about what we didn't cover. I'd like them to message Ryan about that, if you could, please.
Yeah, because
he will circle back
right
next week and cover them.
Right. Yeah.
It is time for question and answer because we are running out of time. The first one, Ryan, comes from Amy, and I've seen this one before. I don't know if we've had it, but I've seen this one come across. Similar questions, anyway. Can you tell me why it is that kids in showmanship are now putting their hand on their leg or their rear pocket? Is it just a Michigan trend? I'm not 100% sure what species. I'm assuming pigs. I don't know.
I don't know. And I had somebody, because I mentioned this on one of the podcasts, I had somebody, and obviously if you're showing a calf, both your hands are going to be full at pretty much all times. And if it's not, then there's probably a little problem there. But pigs, you're going to have a whip. A lot of people have a brush in their hand, put a brush in pocket. Goats, obviously one hand's going to, and sheep, unless you're leading the sheep, you're going to have a hand free when you're walking around. But this whole free hand thing, it's become a thing that, like, I mentioned the other day when I was at a show in Kansas that a bunch of the goat showmen, when they were leading their goats around, they put their free hand up in like a fist position, up, raised up in like a fist position. And I thought that just looked a little awkward and maybe a little defensive. And so I said it in showmanship. I just didn't like that. If you have a free hand, I don't know if I'd stick it on my body, but I think as far as free hand, if you just hold it somewhere close to your waist in a natural position, that's probably going to be my general recommendation.
And I second that. And sometimes it is uncomfortable. You don't know what to do with that free hand. And yeah, not a bad question. I don't know that. I don't know if there's an absolute answer, and every judge is going to be a little bit different about it. And every showmanship coach is going to be different.
Right. In showmanship, everybody's going to be a little different. Just my recommendation, I guess Dale's agreeing with me. If you have a free hand when you're leading, or even like if you're standing, like with a goat, I would just put it somewhere in the general vicinity of my waist in as natural position as I can.
Okay. Question 2, Ryan. And this one, I'm going to tell you right up front, I can't help you. It's all you. I have no idea.
Okay.
The question came through one of the Facebook messengers to Beyond the Ring. Hello, my name is Nick. Hey, do you have a peacock? And can you do a watch along or something on there for me?
Huh?
I thought maybe it was some type of gay code or something I was missing.
A peacock and a what?
A peacock. A watch along. They must have messaged us by mistake. I'm confused. I thought maybe there's something there that you could translate for me.
No.
Nick, I apologize. I'm not sure. I have a kangaroo, or my family has a kangaroo. We have some other animals.
I was going to say, can you get Rue a webcam? Maybe that will.
Now, you know what? My wife did talk about we're going to our local animal swap here in a week or so.
Animal swap? You're swapping Rue?
Not swapping. I don't doubt that my children or my wife may buy a peacock to turn loose on the property, and maybe we can put a camera on it or something like that. But as of right now, we do not have a peacock.
I would rather the camera be on Rue and not the peacock. But
Rue is now officially back out of the barn. It's warm enough. He is greeting the school bus again. He has not escaped recently out the front gate. So far, so good.
I think Rue needs a GoPro.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Yes. I would enjoy that. Yeah, no, it'd be nice to know what he's becoming a little more nocturnal as it gets warmer, that he's out and about more at night. And I really have no idea where he's going or what he's up to. Rose submits the next question, or topic, or subject, we'll say this one is. Hi, a question for a future episode. On your Once Upon a Time episode, you talked about the lack of audience support at some shows. We're planning our first jackpot show in June. As show managers, is there anything we can do to build a culture at our shows where families are excited to be there and excited to support each other?
It's an excellent question, and
it's good. I love it. I love it.
I don't know if there's an answer. All I can tell you is that I'm going to use Arizona National as an example. I think when people are happy about being at a show and they feel like they are welcomed and wanted and all of those things, then they are naturally in a better mood, and that would lend more to them being happier for other people when they win, even if it's not their child. So I guess, and Arizona National just creates the best environment of any large scale show that I've ever been to. And so that's why I use them as an example. But like, I would say anything that you could do to make those families and exhibitors feel welcome, wanted, appreciated, and, as little drama or strife at the show possible, then yeah. And again, I'm very disappointed with the shows since we've said that, because I'm still asking for people to clap and still nobody's doing it. So yeah, I don't know how we change this other than keep talking about it. And
we are going to continue until it's changed. I am not going to let this one go.
It just I don't. And again, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, and every show, and I talked to a guy or several judges that they heard the podcast or whatever and talked about it, and like when they said, well, I don't even ask for applause anymore because it's just an exercise in vanity. They're not going to do it, so why even waste your breath? And I don't know if that's the right answer either, but I get their frustration and I understand it, but I really think that this is, and people, obviously the masses that listen to this don't think that this is an important part of it, because, and I know it's only been a few weeks, but I haven't seen a great deal of change, and I've brought it up at shows. And so obviously I think it's way more important than most people do, but I'm not going to give up on it. And I think it's something that needs to change. And I'm glad they asked this question, and that's my answer, is just do everything possible to put them in a good mood and a good humor so they will be happy regardless of the outcome.
Excellent, Ryan. And I think that's good. I'm going to insert myself here. Brandon Callis and I had the honor to sort a show in West Virginia this past weekend. I got to watch Brandon sort the hogs. He did the cattle the day before, and I came in to do the sheep and the goats. And I'm going to tell you, this is the first one that I've been to, a jackpot show, I should say, that I've been to. And Ryan, you had been really happy. The applause when you'd pull in first and second, the applause at the end of the class, even though I would ask for it, it was really, really good. I mean, the crowd was, there was plenty of people there. And I think that kind of helps sometimes. But I don't know if it's because of what we've said on the podcast. Maybe it's that way because it's that culture in that local area. And we do see that, and we talked about this before. But I want to give a shout out to the Passion for the Purple, the audience, the supporters that were there. They made those kids feel good in the ring through their applause, whether it was when they're pulled in to get placed or at the end when the class is exiting. Thank you to those spectators there that did that. That means a lot. When you have a child out in that ring or an exhibitor in that ring, and there's only a few people around the ring and it's dead silent, and Ryan or I ask for applause and you get nothing, what do you think it makes those kids feel like? It's not near as exciting for them. When they get pulled into fourth or fifth place and you've got a group clapping for them because they got placed, or when when you're getting done with those reasons, those kids are getting ready to exit and everybody puts their hands together, that makes those kids feel good. And that's why we're doing this, guys. We're doing putting so much time and effort into it. Let's take it one more step. And if you're listening out there, don't be afraid to be that first person. Just start clapping and clap loud. Others will follow. I have one thing, and I'm going to do maybe a little premature announcement here. I threw this idea out to Ryan. I want to do an episode from a judge's perspective, going from show to show across the country. What are the key components that a show manager needs to have in place to make that the most positive experience they can for the exhibitors, for the spectators, for everybody involved, and allows that show to run smoothly? And as Ryan said, you make those people there happy, they're going to get that applause. And he used Arizona National as an example, and that's a perfect example. User-friendly is one of the things that comes to mind. There's something that I stole from the Texas majors, and I saw it again in West Virginia. I rarely see it outside of the state of Texas, but I want to give a big shout out to it. It puts me in a good mood. I think it gets the crowd more excited. But when we play the national anthem at the beginning of the show, Ryan.
No, absolutely. I mean,
you're used to it. I mean, it's almost natural to you having shown in Texas. And I don't know on the smaller.
I'm not taking it for granted, but I mean, even if you just like pull it up on your phone and play it and put the microphone there, like I'm not saying that somebody has to sing, but yeah, I agree.
And if there's somebody there that's good and can, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
And you know what, Ryan? I've been to plenty of Texas majors and the Texas shows, and because we don't see that outside of Texas very often, and there are other shows. I'm not trying to say there aren't, but when I see that happen outside of the state of Texas, I have a very deep appreciation for it, and it's wonderful. One last thing on that, and this is going to go into that topic or that episode for here's what we need to allow a show to work as best it possibly can. I think if you have a microphone that audience can actually hear the judge speak and it's fairly clear, Ryan, you're going to get a lot more interaction from the audience when that happens. Do you not?
I think a good microphone system is crucial, and more than just the judge being able to tell the people what's going on in the ring. It's getting people aware of what class they're on, when they should be up there. It's just it's one of the most crucial things there is.
Exactly, and it's our technology is advanced enough that I know we have these sound systems that have been in place in some of these county fairs and different shows across the country for 50 years. I don't know how long. It is not that expensive to buy a really good portable type microphone system. I'm not saying it's dirt cheap, but relative to what it costs to put on a show, and if you can use it for multiple years, there's some out there that are really good, really clear. We don't have to worry about did a rabbit chew the wire or a squirrel get up in the speaker or whatever. Let's do that, and it makes it so much more positive. And I'm afraid, for the most part, we just kind of go with what we have. We maybe don't put as much emphasis on that, but we'll have a whole episode on that. And Ryan is the most excited. Ryan, I appreciate your time, your insight today. Sometimes we're covering things that seem very simple, very basic, but hopefully it's still useful and educational. Until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear?